The Mandalorian Episode 5, The Gunslinger. So, this episode, I will say, like most people across the internet, this was my least favorite episode out of the entire season. I would probably have to go back and watch Episode 2, which I would say is my second least favorite, to really compare them. But as far as like actually going through and watching them, this may have been my least favorite. It is hard to say. For me personally, I think I would, first viewing at least, I would probably choose this over episode 2 because I actually enjoy. I felt like episode 2 was so much slower than the first episode, and that may have been why. Because I felt like that was kind of a part of it, and it was only the second episode, and I felt like it slowed down a ton compared to the first one. So I don't know. Like maybe that was a big part of why I didn't enjoy episode 2 the first time I actually watched it. And this one I felt still kept a better pacing personally because it was like it just like episode 2 felt slower. But overall, I would probably still pick this as my least favorite episode. Like just going through it is like okay, because you can definitely skip it except for the very ending, which we'll see what happens with that. But as far as going through this episode, it was like okay, cool episode that kind of paid a ton of fan service as the series does. But this one was definitely, it's literally on Tatooine. Excuse me. So, you have the Mandalorian, you have Baby Yoda. They go to Tatooine, which of course is where Star Wars begins, regardless of the original series or the prequel series. The current series doesn't start on Tatooine; it's a different desert planet. But Tatooine is where it begins on both in both Episode 1 and the original Star Wars. So it's like okay, it's where it all began. It's Tatooine. Very empty compared to the original Star Wars films. There was like no one on this planet. It was really funny. Now that I really look back on it, it legitimately was like not a single person was on this planet. It felt like they land there on the ship. And I mentioned in my last review, I was wrong. It was this episode. I just thought it. I just did that review and I just realized this is the episode where they have the space battle in the very beginning. So I did kind of spoil that, even though it was like the most minute spoiler. But they end up going to Tatooine. They have the woman come out. She's like, oh, she's a mechanic. So it's like, this is what's happening. He's like, all right, I'm gonna go get your money. Watch the kid. Basically just keep him safe. Well, pretty much he just leaves the kid on the ship. So he doesn't actually say that. That happens a bit later when he realizes it. But it's like, all right, I'll get your money. Just fix the ship. Goes to the Mos Eisley Cantina, which is like the only like actual city in all of Star Wars. Everything else is just the planet name. Like you just go to Tatooine, or you go to Endor, or you go to the forest moon of Endor, and that's it. You only go to the planets. Mos Eisley, unless I'm mistaken, I'm sure it's somewhere in like old legacy stuff. Mos Eisley is like the only actual city ever truly named in like all of Star Wars, because it's just let's go to Tatooine or let's go to Coruscant, which the whole city's a planet. And I guess technically for Coruscant, the other cities would be the different levels, and that's about it because the place is so big. Like the levels are like the cities. But yeah, it was kind of funny. It's like Mos Eisley Cantina, which that could just be the name of the cantina. Technically, it might not be in Mos Eisley, but I'm pretty sure that was always the point. It's like it's in Mos Eisley. I was thinking about that recently, so I just wanted to randomly put that out there. Like it's the only actual city that's named. Everything else is just let's go to this planet. So I just thought that was funny. But either way, they go to the cantina. They go in, like I said, super empty. Nobody is in there except this one dude who's sitting in Han Solo's seat. And it was like, okay, that's interesting. I didn't really care about that or anything. It was just like, oh, they're in the cantina. They're on Tatooine. I didn't even realize they were on Tatooine, which I probably should have realized that when they do the landing. But it was just like he just landed in a spot. It wasn't even the exact same place. I don't think. I don't think it was this exact same place where the Millennium Falcon was, because the Falcon is way bigger than the Mando ship. So I was like, I didn't even realize it was Tatooine until they were walking through, and then he went to the cantina. I was like, oh, they're on Tatooine. I didn't even know that. It was just like they were just somewhere. It was just a random desert planet because there are a million. And I was just like, oh, okay, now I know they're on Tatooine. They're in the Mos Eisley Cantina. So of course they end up meeting this guy whose name I totally forgot. I'll be honest, I didn't even think to bother looking it up because it admittedly doesn't matter unless he somehow magically comes back to life. But he meets this guy and it's like, look, I have this mission. We can get some extra money on it. You help me take this woman out. You're a part of the guild. I'm a part of the guild. Let's go. And so the Mandalorian's like, well, you must not be that, you must not be that in the know if you're a part of the guild currently, because obviously everyone's coming after me. He doesn't obviously give those details, and he's about to take off. And the guy's like, all right, look, this is my first mission ever. I need this to be successful so that I can officially become a part of the guild. So it's like, all right, he needs the money. He's helping out this brand new kid who doesn't know what the heck he's doing. So they end up going out into the desert. They're looking for this assassin. They get on speeder bikes, my favorite vehicles in all of Star Wars. I was just happy about that. So, they're going out. It's like, all right, we have to find this person. They go through. It's like, all right, we figure out, exactly what's going on. They have like the little trap and they realize what's happening. So it's like, all right, we have to wait till nightfall for this assassin. And then, we got a plan. So they're waiting until nightfall. They have the really funny scene where the kid's like, oh, he thought that he was asleep. And that was probably my favorite scene in the whole episode because it was so funny. He's like, hey, man, don't wake up. And he's like, oh, look at you, old man. You fell asleep on the job. And he's like, who? And he's like drawn. He's like, and he was just sitting there and it was like, you finished? He was like, oh, yeah, I'm done. And I just thought that was really funny. Like, he was just watching and was just like, because of course you can't tell if he's awake. And I thought he might be, even when they did it. And he was just sitting there and it was like, you finished? So I love that scene. And then, of course, they go on and it's like, all right, this is how we're going to do it. We'll shoot out on our speeder bikes. She can only attack us, one at a time. But if we shoot off these flares, then, of course, it'll blind her. She'll have to recalibrate. We'll get closer and closer. And then that'll kind of work, things will work out. So as they go through, naturally that ends up failing. So they end up having to kind of split apart a little bit. And we have a pretty cool action sequence because, of course, it's Ming-Na Wen. I was surprised that it was her, but that was pretty awesome. I love her as an actress. And she's super cool. She's like the badass person in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. For people who don't watch it. She's like the cool person in the show. So it was pretty awesome to see her in there. And then, of course, she's the villain, or villainess, if you will. And so, they go through, they end up capturing her, of course, and it's like, all right, well, of course, because things fell apart, we lost one of our speeder bikes, and the kid's like, all right, well, I'm not going to let you go and, take the speeder bike because I don't really trust you. And it's like, all right, fine, you stay with the speeder bike, I'll walk, and, I'll get that, and so we'll have transport, we'll be good to go. So, of course, as the Mandalorian's gone, we have our, our rookie, our new fish in the guild. He's kind of just stuck there, unknowing, and we have this assassin who's like, all right, you don't know who you're kind of teamed up with. And it's like, it's a Mandalorian, whatever. It's a Mandalorian. What are you talking about? Like, you're going to give me a bunch of money. I don't want to hear your crap. Because, of course, that seemed to be the way it was going to go. It's like, hey, you're going to kind of, fall for this. Like, that's just how it seemed. Like, he's the new guy. He's going to get tricked and stuff like that. He's totally going to fall for it. And she's going to kill the guy and then kind of take off. So she kind of spills the beans. It's like, he's worth way more than I am because of what he just did. And so she doesn't, of course, go into all the details, but it's like, oh, okay, so I don't really need you then. And so he kills her. And I was like, oh, well, I didn't see that one coming. And some people complain, like, of course he was like, they're like, well, why wouldn't he try to do both? He probably should have, but at the same time, it's like, where do you go with that? Because, what's he going to do? Kill them both? It's that sort of thing. Because I mean, obviously, he wasn't good enough to kill the Mandalorian at the end of the episode. I don't think it would have worked. It really would have been like a three-way standoff. And I think in his defense, I think it makes a ton of sense to kill her off and then just take off and try to, take the kid. Because it's like, all right, I could try to take them both in. I could kill him. I could kill her. I don't remember if they needed her. I think they needed her alive for her specific bounty. And he didn't know the details for the Mandalorian. But it's like, do I really want to try to go that route where it's like, all right, I probably sit her off to the side or something like that. Like, it just, I don't think for him, especially considering the character was so new, like, he could shoot, but he clearly didn't have a ton of skills. So I'm like, in his defense, I think it made sense to kind of kill her off and just try to have one target that was worth more money than try to get both. Because there's no way that would have worked for him, like, at all. Like, clearly, he wasn't good enough to take out one person, and he was holding the baby. It just wasn't in the cards for him. So I think trying to take down, two people or, take in this assassin who's like a great fighter and a Mandalorian, there's no way in the world that would have worked in his favor. So I think it made sense that he would kill her off and then just go for the higher bounty because it's like, all right, well, I don't want her out there. And, so just boom, kill her off because who knows what the F she's going to do. And she'd probably come after me anyway if I let her live because you can never trust the bad guys. They always betray each other. That's the point. So it's like, I can't just let her live. She's seen my face. She knows my name. I think she knew his name, but she at least knew his face. And it's just like, yeah, kill her off and try to go for the, the bigger bounty. Of course, that doesn't end up working. And the Mandalorian, he does end up getting captured. Or, kind of ends up in a standoff. So, of course, Baby Yoda is taken by the guy. And it's like, all right, you put your hands behind your head. Talking to the mechanic, he's like, you put the cuffs on him. And so, of course, he has one of the little flares. And she's like, you're smarter than you look. And so he blasts him with the flare. And then they just take him down. Like he kills him off, and it's like, oh, okay, well, done. The dude, the deal is done. So he's dead. He takes the money off of him, and everything's good to go. And that was all there was to it. It was like, all right, I got my money. I kept the kid safe. Here's your money for the chip. And then they take off, and that was it. And I was like, "Oh, okay, cool." Of course, he saved them. Like, it wasn't like I thought the Mandalorian was actually gonna die. We do see him take a hit from the blaster, though. Like, he got hit in the armor, and it was like, "Well, that's pretty awesome." Like, he got hit twice, even, because he got hit from really far away the first time, and then when they were kind of riding up on her, he got hit after his speeder bike was destroyed, and he of course survived all the hits. And it was like, well, that's pretty cool. That armor, that Beskar armor is legit. It does its job. So I thought that was pretty awesome. But it was like, yeah, it was a decent episode, and it was just like, all right, they kind of went through, and it was just detached from everything. And then of course we have our only moment in the entire series that's really like this, where you're left on a cliffhanger, like a full-on cliffhanger. Not counting like episode 7, which was really 7 and 8 are like a 2-parter, so it's different. But this one was just a full-on cliffhanger. They have him leave the planet. Everything seems cool, and I was like, okay. It kind of just ended. It was a full circle sort of episode. Like, it went through. He landed on the planet after the space battle. He goes through some stuff, and then he leaves the planet, and that's it. Nothing big happened. So he leaves, and I just assumed like they're flying up into space. It's gonna end. And then it cuts back to Ming-Na Wen's character. And we have this random person walking up. And so, of course, the big speculation is that it's Boba Fett. For those of you who didn't notice, they had spurs for the character. They had spurs on the character, and that spurs are specifically used for Mandalorians because they're supposed to be cowboys. So they put spurs on the characters, or at least the sound effect of spurs, on the characters. And I thought it was supposed to be, the guy that pops up later. I forgot the actor's name, but I'm just going to call him Gus Fring from Breaking Bad. I thought it was supposed to be his character, and that this assassin was someone that knew him, and that she was kind of, whatever she was dealing with was bigger than we anticipated, and I thought that was going to be his character. And so, we have this person that pops up at the end, and it's like, okay, so maybe he's a Mandalorian. People say it could still be Boba Fett, because it could just, it's after Return of the Jedi, so if he escaped the Sarlacc pit, which would be from, Legends canon, he does escape the Sarlacc pit, it could be him. He could have, a different outfit at this point. It is on Tatooine. It kind of makes sense. He wasn't able to escape. Maybe something weird happened with Slave One. So, and that's his ship. So I don't know, because we don't really know where his ship is within Return of the Jedi. We don't know where he landed. It could be at Jabba's palace still, or something like that. We don't really know what was going on with some of Boba Fett's stuff. So that could be him, just in a different outfit. A buddy of mine showed me a video where it's like there's like some extra beeping sound effects that are related to Boba Fett as well from the original movies that are also in this scene that I totally didn't notice. I only noticed the spurs. So either way, it is a Mandalorian, and that's interesting. So we kind of just have to wait for that answer. But I was like, all right, that's at least intriguing. That's definitely something to kind of keep you going, like, well, what the F is happening here? So that was definitely a really good ending, like a great teaser, really, especially with it being, a Mandalorian. It's like, what the F does that mean? So I'm very excited for the answer to that. But full-on episode-wise, it was a really circular episode that wasn't as entertaining as the last one. That was the main thing, because the Sanctuary episode was exactly the same. He lands on the planet, they go through the story, he leaves the planet at the end. That's totally fine. This one just wasn't as entertaining. It was just like legitimate. Like I said, Tatooine seemed like it was straight up empty. I think the whole episode, the entire planet, we saw like 5 people. It was like the dude at the bar. Actually, it may have been a droid. So actual living creatures. Yeah, it may have been like 5. So we have Mandalorian, Baby Yoda, Assassin, the dude, and then the mechanic. So we have like 5 people, 6 if you count the guy in the ship from the beginning. And then, a couple of droids, and maybe 7 if that was a human at the end, which I assume it was, being a Mandalorian. So, like 6 people and like 115, because it's just like their feet. And so it's like, all right, they're on this whole planet, and it felt like there was nobody there. There was nobody in the cantina. There was nobody anywhere else. And it was just like, actually, there were Tusken Raiders. I forgot about the Tusken Raiders. So we had them as well. But it was just like, all right, it's an oddly empty episode. It didn't feel like there was much life in it. And maybe that was another reason it wasn't as good. Like, something about it just felt off. And it was because they're in, like, it's not just because they're on Tatooine, but it was like they literally went to a bar and no one was there. Nobody was there. Nobody was anywhere else on the planet, it seemed. And I'm sure they did go past some people as they were walking, but it was just so minute. Like, there were just so few people. It didn't feel like a real episode almost. It was just like, it was literally people who had dialogue were the only people in this episode. You didn't see background characters and stuff like that. Like, that's how it felt in this episode. It felt too empty. And it was literally just do the episode stuff. There's nothing to be like, oh, this is a living world. Especially with it being Tatooine. If you're a big fan, it's like, it's Tatooine. Like, you kind of expect, you don't expect it to be like, oh, there's there's Luke going back to his home planet, showing off Tatooine to his sister, weird dumb stuff like that. You don't expect to see that, but just a bit more. And I think that's kind of what felt weird. That was the main thing that felt weird. It was just like, there's just not enough life in the episode. It was literally, it felt like it was only the people that actually progressed the story were the ones in the episode. It felt like there were no background characters. It was just characters with dialogue, and that was it. Regardless of where they were, just no one showed up. It was like, if you weren't actually talking or doing something, you didn't exist. It just felt super empty. So that was something that I noticed that just felt kind of weird. And maybe that just added to why the episode didn't feel as great, because it was just like they just didn't, I don't know, it's like they used the budget up on all the other episodes, so this one just felt super empty, and they just didn't feel like there were any people or creatures in any regard. So I would say that's probably the big thing that was the thing that I don't think I grasped until just now, but I knew there was something else. I was like, the episode itself is like, it's all right. It's just it's a cool, decent action episode. Like, they have some unique ways to deal with the action, so I thought it was cool. But something about it definitely just felt empty, and I think that's what it was. It was like you only see people interact with people that have dialogue. It wasn't just like, oh, they walked past this person, or they did this thing or did that thing. It was legitimately just, here's a shot, couple steps, dialogue, action, dialogue. And it was just like, it just felt oddly weird for kind of the liveliness that they built up within the past couple episodes of the show. So I definitely say this was my least favorite episode. And like I said, I would have to go back and check episode 2, but I don't think that even had the point of that was that it was like they were meant to be alone, and he was spending time with the kid and trying to get back on the ship. And this one just felt oddly empty. Like, it didn't feel right that there was just no one anywhere. So I think there's a difference in that feeling. So this might still hit me as my least favorite episode. Although, oddly enough, I think between Sanctuary, this one, and the next episode, this episode probably has the most important ending, or most important like story element that's going to come back later in the series. Because the other ones, like the last one, Sanctuary, and then the next episode, I feel have characters that'll come back, but they won't be a Mandalorian. Whoever this is, especially if it's Boba Fett, the other 2 episodes will have nothing that even remotely compares to like, holy crap, Boba Fett was brought back into the series. But either way, for me, it's a Mandalorian, so it's gonna be something there, even if it's not Boba. It's gonna be something insanely critical that I think will be far more important than they bring back the woman for the next episode, or they bring back some of the people in the next one, or bring back the one from the last episode. So we'll see how it all ends up playing out going forward with this series as a whole. But yeah, least favorite episode, but I did still enjoy it. Like, overall, I was still like, okay, I enjoyed the episode, but it was just kind of like, like, even when it ended, I was just kind of like, oh, that was just okay. Like, that's just how it felt overall. Even though I had some great moments, overall, it still just kind of felt like, whatever. So those are my thoughts on it, of course. And that seems to be the general consensus when it goes through the whole season. It's this episode. But we'd love to know what you guys thought about it. So please put your comments down in the comment section below. Let me know your favorite parts about it, least favorite parts about it. And of course, who was it at the end? It was a Mandalorian. Do you think it was Boba Fett? Do you think it'll, in some crazy way, be someone from like Clone Wars or Rebels that they bring into live action? Brand new character maybe? With them doing the cliffhanger? I don't know. Like, they only have a few options, because what's the point of doing a cliffhanger just to be like, oh, it's this person? Unless it's going to be someone related to the Mandalorian. That's another thing they can do, because it could be any random person, but if they're related to the Mandalorian, like, it's like, oh, this is the guy who became my brother, or if it's a woman, this is the woman that was like my sister to me as I was growing up in the, within the Mandalorian creed as a foundling, then it matters. If it's someone brand new, but they have that connection, then it's still really cool. But with the way they did the cliffhanger, it's like, we'll see what happens. I think the fact that they went up to the assassin makes it that they're going to be a cool character in general, because they're going to be doing some really shady stuff. So I think regardless of who it actually does end up being, I think they'll still lead to some cool storyline. So either way, I am looking forward to it, but we'll see what the connection ends up being, if there is one, or if it's just like epic reveal, totally Boba Fett. But well, let us know your theories on it, who you think it's going to be, who you even want it to be. So please put your comments down in the comment section below. And of course, thanks for watching.